You're listening to Planksty, a podcast exploring the rich tapestry of Irish dance and the community who loves it. Hosted by Julia Topper, ethnomusicologist, Irish dancer, music educator, and writer, and Christo Sween, a 20-year Irish dance dad, live camera director for Fesh TV, and operations manager at the Celtic Junction Arts Center.
How you doing, Christo?
I'm great, Julia. How are you?
I'm good.
Good to
Doing
see you.
good.
Good to hear you.
Yeah, good to hear you too.
Yeah.
We, just saw each other last weekend. I was able to recording this in March, right around March Madness time for Irish
my God.
dancers. I believe this episode's going to air in April, but we had a fabulous time last weekend visiting you guys in St. Paul's. It was awesome.
Thanks. It was great to see you guys too. And we talk a lot, but seeing each other in person is just so much better.
It's so much better.
So thanks for coming to the show and for seeing the gang in St. Paul. And I'm glad the weather was okay. And
yeah.
Yeah.
I've lucked out. I feel like most times I've been there, in March, it's, usually you guys are still, in feet of snow. And every time I've come, it's been in the 60s. So maybe it's me. Maybe I'm just bringing the sunshine with me, man.
That must be it. You have to come back because we're sort of looking at some tough weather coming up here this weekend as we're heading out on the road. We take the show on the road on Monday or on Saturday, and then we're back at the Junction on Sunday, and then on the road again on Monday and back to the Junction on Tuesday. And the weather is not supposed to be awesome. So fingers crossed.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll send good vibes your way. Hopefully you get through it and you're not mucking through too much snow there.
It'll be great. I'm super excited for our conversation today.
Yes.
Whew.
Yes. So today, we've talked with Brian O'Sullivan, who is an actor, comedian, podcaster, and of course, a Fesh musician. And, he is just one of the best people. I just absolutely adore him.
True.
He's got such a good sense of humor and such a fine sense of storytelling. And so he's just been, an absolute delight to get to know over the years. Currently, he is playing as part of the cast of Cabaret in London's West End. He just finished up another West End run of Macbeth. He's just got so much going on. It's so cool. He also has a couple of different credits that I can mention here. He composed and performed music for a comedy called Fesh, which premiered last fall in Glasgow. It had sold out shows, really resonated with audiences. He's going to tell us about it today. It's a very cool story. And he also was quite well known for his Janice and Frank characters. There were these absolutely hysterical, oh my gosh, videos. We're going to put a link to his Instagram page so you all can go check it out. But these are these videos that went absolutely viral during the COVID pandemic lockdown. And after lockdowns ended, he wrote and starred then in a stage play featuring these two characters. It was called the Janice and Frank story. So I encourage everybody to go check that out. So we're going to, share this wonderful conversation that we had with you all. And I hope you find it as delightful as we did.
Yeah, his perspective is really amazing. I mean, he's always had this good sense of understanding the story and things, but like the perspective that he brings is astonishing. So should we get into it?
Let's do it.
Hey, Brian.
Hey.
So glad to see you. Welcome to the Planksty podcast.
Well, first of all, what an excellent title for a podcast. I'm very jealous. I never
Thank
thought
you.
of it myself.
We worked super hard on that. Well, not super hard, but
we went through a couple iterations before we landed on that one. So
it's good.
Pretty
good
pleased
work.
with it. Thank you.
Now all you have to do is make it good.
Yeah,
I
right.
know,
that's the
you
tall
mean if
order.
you don't
That's
get
why
the
you're
title,
on.
it doesn't just automatically get good?
No, that's just the beginning. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
okay.
We need to invite better guests on then. I guess that's the
After
the bottom
this,
line.
get some good ones.
Well, we're working on it, Brian. If you've got anyone you think would be good on the podcast, let us know.
Absolutely.
Let us know. Yeah, you are podcaster extraordinaire. How many episodes are you up to on the Putting It Together podcast?
I just recorded episode 460 of my podcast.
Okay.
Wow.
So I do one a week. I've done one a week. Pandemic only half withstanding, I've done one a week since November 2017. And I took 1 week off when, I don't know if you remember when Nationals was in Orlando, I think.
Okay.
Was it Orlando? It was certainly Florida. About 2018.
Okay.
And before that, I had played Carl Drake's Feis in Fort Lauderdale, and in the middle of between the two, I got really sick, and I had to go to hospital. And I always remember it because I got the bill later, and I come from a place where we don't get bills for going to hospital.
Yeah.
So it was an absolute last resort. And anyway, I then took a week off the podcast because I was supposed to do it in between. I had the interview recorded, but I didn't do the kind of intro and upload because I was just like bedbound. And I actually recorded the intro on my phone outside the Feis Hotel, like walking around the block in the sun the day after Nationals finished, and finally put it out a week late. Apart from that, I've never had a break.
That's fantastic.
That's impressive.
It's not bad.
Well, we've recorded 4 episodes, so
that's good.
Yeah. No, that's more than 4
now. We're on our way.
Yeah, I recorded my first 10 before I released any because I was like, if I just do one and get it over the line, no chance.
That's what we've done as well, or are doing. That's the plan anyway. Yeah. So that Feis story is interesting. What's your earliest Feis memory? Like, were you going to Feishes with your dad when he was playing?
Yeah, all the time. I had a plastic toy accordion, and I sat beside him and played along.
How old were you?
Great.
From a toddler. I mean, I remember the main thing I remember about Feishes when I was a kid was getting together with other kids my age. I never danced, and to me, it was just a playground. It was it was an adventure place. My dad was playing. I could do what I wanted because he couldn't really leave the seat. So I just had free reign. And I also discovered quite early on that if you went to, in those days it was just a canteen of Feis mums making, cheese sandwiches. And if you went there and said, I'm coming here for the musicians and they would like this, this and this, they would just give you it for free. So I was like, and the musicians would like some cheese and onion crisps and a can of Coke and just the list. And they would look at me, and sometimes I'd bring my dad a cheese sandwich, but the rest of the time I was just stuffing my face. And trying to get the janitor to chase us was a big part of it. Because you were usually in a school or a church hall, and if you could get into a room you weren't supposed to be in, and then, what are you doing in here? And then you'd run away, and we just, it was nothing to do with Irish dancing or culture. It was just fun, We loved it.
And now all the kids that come are on screens, and so they don't get up to the mayhem.
They're not interested in the mayhem. It's a totally different world, yeah. But I mean, the whole scene is so different because back then, I remember very smoky halls because people smoked indoors.
Oh, sure.
Everyone brought their own like flask of tea, and they sat and smoked. And the Feis went on till 2 a.m. And it was much more chaotic, and more people were a lot more drunk, I think. There were no metronomes or drum machines. The music was just kind of at whatever tempo. And the dancers would move their hand to suggest up, down, faster, slower. It was a different world. It was totally different. Wow. And I feel like I've been of the generation where I've seen that transition into what we have now, which is this hugely professionalized, slick operation that we never saw in the 80s and 90s.
What's your take on the level of professionalism of it now compared to have we lost anything other than like the experience the kids have getting into mayhem?
Yeah,
or have you seen it improve? Like, is it
there's
all
a
right
lot of improvements. I think the main thing that you want to improve is like the safety of kids, isn't it? Ultimately, because it's supposed to be about them, and still it isn't always about them. That makes me sad, but I think that they are, on the whole, probably safer and having a safer experience, which is really important. Yeah. But yeah, I think we have lost some of the spirit of it. In organizing everything to the nth degree, but that's just going to happen, I think, with anything. As soon as you put people together, in a committee, then one of them's going to go mad with power, and someone's going to take all the money and run away, and they're going to have an argument. That happens anywhere.
It's just humans.
What's happening on the Planksty podcast.
And behind the scenes at Planksty, I know.
Already gone to hell in a handbasket here.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think
I'm the one man with power.
You're the one. Of course you are. I think some of the, it's almost like Blitz spirit or gallows humor or something that we used to have. It's kind of, is sort of been erased a little bit. But as long as, I don't know, I think it's really hard to fully stamp that out, and I don't think you'll ever completely lose it.
No.
Feshland is a completely unique place, and I still end up delirious with tiredness and over-caffeination and just being around the best people, and you never lose that stuff. And I think if that feeling ever went out of it, then I would stop doing it.
Yeah.
Because I do it because of this unique experience that you don't get anywhere else, of complete immersion in music and dance. To the point where you really lose in touch with the outside world completely. It's almost transcendent at points to me.
It's true. It's interesting to hear you frame it that way, because so I have to confess here, I've been, for a few episodes, been talking about the Fesh world as the crazy Fesh world. And I regret the times in the episodes previously where I've referred to it as crazy. It is unique. It is manic. It is a little crazy at times, but the world itself is so special. And so, like you say, you're just sort of, everything else disappears and you are really immersed in this amazing experience. So it's different, it's unusual, it's not what most people do normally, but that doesn't mean it's abnormal or crazy. Can be at times, but
I mean, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with it, but trying to explain it to someone who hasn't been involved, that's a one way of realizing for yourself just how unusual it is. Because I've brought the occasional person into it. Maybe you start seeing someone and you bring them along to their first Fesh, or a friend, or traveling with you. I brought a friend traveling a few years ago, and we went around a bunch of Feshes in the US, and he was just like, what is this? And you find yourself you have to sort of dial back and go, well, okay, so how do you even begin? Well, 50 years ago, no, 100 years ago, where do you start? I don't know. They dance 3 rounds, but some of them dance 2 rounds. It doesn't matter. So, I don't even know. I mean, if an alien landed and we tried to explain to them what a Fesh was, good luck, I'd say.
Yeah. Have you ever brought in other musicians to play that haven't done Feshes before and gotten to see their experience of playing a Fesh, kind of the first time, and as opposed to doing a session or something like that?
A little bit. I mean, I've been around when musicians have sat in who are Irish musicians but who haven't played much in the Fesh scene. I've certainly done that. I think Mid-America Oireachtas has been a big one for that. People sitting in and people learning and kind of doing their apprenticeship, and that's always exciting. I played a local Fesh with an amazing accordion player called Paddy Callahan, who is a BBC Young Musician of the Year, like a virtuosic button box player. But probably, I wouldn't say has played all that many Feshes in his life, but has gigged all over the world. He plays with Mech Lear. He's amazing. But years and years ago, we played a Fesh, and I remember at one point someone coming up to us and saying, "That's a light jig, not a single jig," and neither of us knew what the answer to that question was. We were like, okay, and I was like, just jigs, and he was like, jigs, and then after a few hours of this confusion, he eventually went, "Do you mean slides?" And I was like, "Slides," and that's an Irish word for what the single jig tune is. So, like, we were both young, and I was supposed to be the experienced one, but I didn't have a clue.
Wow.
But yeah, the blind leading the blind,
It is really interesting when you see all these kind of differences in terminology between what we get so used to in the Fesh world versus how people actually talk about music. I don't want to say like in the real world, but like if we think about Fesh music as being its own separate, kind of subgenre of Irish music, kind of thinking about these differences in terminology. And one thing I always find really interesting when I've done gigs with musicians who, maybe just play with dancers once a year around St. Patrick's Day or, something like that, is the communication, right? And trying to figure out what's their language, what's our language, how can we make it so that we all know, how many A's there are, how many B's there are. St. Patrick's Day is going to have, 3 A's and a B, something like that. And trying to coordinate all of that ends up being a really interesting experience.
I think the A's thing, even as one example, so the A part of the tune would be usually 8 bars, and in Irish dance music, we always add another A because we have an intro when they don't dance. So normally a tune is A, A, B, B. Let's take a reel, for example. We make 3 A's and 2 B's, and then whatever goes after it because we need the introduction. Now, at a certain point as a feis musician, that is so ingrained in me that when I hear other music and they play 2 A's, I feel kind of seasick. I'm like, that's not right. We're missing an A. That's how much it's in my kind of DNA now, feis music.
Yeah.
And when someone new comes in, you have to go, no, don't go up yet. We would call it up. Don't go to the B yet. We've got to do another 8 bars kind of thing. And the lengths of the dances and stuff, it gets to a point where you barely think about it because you just go, that's done.
You just know.
We can feel that that's done now.
Sure. Yeah, that's really interesting.
It's a strange place to get to.
Yeah. Well, I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about your dad, who is Seamus O'Sullivan. And he had a huge role in kind of feis music history. And, I'm sure people remember, his albums with Jerry Conlon. And, I know that a lot of the feis musicians I've talked to have pointed to your dad as being someone who has really influenced today's feis music sound. And he was one of the people that brought in the Scottish repertoire and, Scottish style. So I was wondering if you could, for those of us who are regularly making music, maybe are making Irish music, I was wondering if maybe you could talk about what some of those influences might be, what people could listen for, and maybe your own sound and how it might come from that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. It's something I think quite a lot about, actually, because over the years, my style has diverged from my dad's. Diverged, is that the right word?
Sure.
The older I get, the more different our musical styles are.
Sure.
And it's almost like the older he gets, the further he goes into his kind of passion for Scottish music and that end of things. So it drives us not apart, but down different roads. I think one of the things I noticed early on was actually in my dad's piano playing, and I would call it the thumb, right? But I'm not sure even how to explain it. So the left hand on the piano is usually just playing bass notes. Bum, 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 bum. Just kind of keeping the on beat with bass notes. That's a broadly speaking, because you're doing what's called a vamp. Bass, chord, bum, 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 right? On the right hand, what I discovered in my dad's playing early on was that the 4 fingers are kind of creating a chord, and often the thumb is playing other notes in between that leads from chord to chord. And it would be the bottom note of the chord, because the thumb is at the end, if you like, of the right hand. And this thumb note rang out differently from the rest of the chord and kind of led us to the next chord and gave us a separate journey than what the bass was doing, and gave this kind of extra flavour to the chord. This is something that it would be much easier if I was sitting at a piano to explain to you. But I asked him about it probably 20 years ago. I said, what is that? Because I feel like he was the one who taught it to me, and I don't know the origins of it. And he seemed to think that he'd picked it up from the piano playing of Shetland musicians. Shetland being the islands that are way, way, way up the north, off the north coast of Scotland. And particularly from someone called Margaret Cooper, who is this amazing Shetland-based piano player. And he said, I remember watching her and hearing that little thumb leading to the next chord and giving this extra flavour. And I took it, and then it went into my playing, and then it went into the feis world. Now, of course, we don't know exactly the origin of anything. It's like phrases. People say, I was the first person to use that phrase. I don't know. I don't know, but I do it. That's something that's kind of, there's a through line there. It's a tiny thing, and many people might not even notice it. But it's really specific to the way my dad plays the piano. Then the Scottishness, I think, like I say, has become more pronounced in his playing as time's gone on. The Irishness in my playing has become more pronounced. I don't know if that's rebellion, but even the choice of tunes, like I'll play tunes that kind of that dance around the same phrases and that have 5 parts, and like tunes like the Fox Hunters or the Bucks of Oranmore that very Irish, that are sessiony tunes that you could go round and round all day. The type of tune that Martin Hayes would play on the fiddle, and you could go for a cup of tea and come back and he'd still be playing it. And my dad just isn't interested in tunes like that. He likes, I would almost say gimmicky tunes, if that wasn't kind of derogatory, but like tunes that have really obvious kind of big hooks in them. Like a really big flashy mad chord in the middle of the B part that goes ha, and the tune follows the chord, and it's like this kind of this dazzle moment. He loves all that, and anything like that, I go, no, it's too much. I want to be a bit more austere somehow. And it's amazing to me that, I mean, any janitor or hall monitor, whoever's working at the venue who isn't involved in Irish dancing, will invariably say to you, "How can you play the same tune over and over again all day?" And I go, and sometimes I just do that. Or sometimes I say, it's actually a lot of different tunes, but I get how they sound the same. And from that, in the one room, you can have someone who believes that we're playing the same tune over and over again, and also us sitting there at the instruments having this conversation about how that tune is so different from that tune. Yeah. They come from different countries, and I wouldn't dream of playing that, but I'd love to play this, and you wouldn't want to play. We're having these kind of debates all day long if we're playing together. And I'm saying, don't play that, put that in the bin. He's saying, come on, we'll play that. Peter Street or some stupid tune like that people love. Sometimes people just love. Stick it. My dad loves it. Yep. So I don't know what the question was, but I do know that I'm annoyed at my dad for liking Peter Street, even though he's awesome.
People like to hear some. It's like pop music. Like people like to hear songs where the expectation that they have is rewarded.
Yeah, it's met. For sure. And the Glasgow Reel does that.
And other people like to be surprised. Like it just where you find your delight, is just as many different ideas as there are people in the room.
Yeah, that's true.
When you and your dad played together, Glasgow, for
Glasgow Worlds was the last big one we played. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When do you argue like that? Do you have disagreements and
all day? Yeah. All day long.
Yeah.
And the trouble
just like
is,
supper.
Yeah, I mean, he is the lead musician because we've always kind of agreed that I'm a better piano player and he's a better accordion player. Out of the two of us, that's the best formation we should be in. So he's the lead musician. So ultimately, he gets the decision, but I'll have comments about everything, And any of the other musicians I play with will say the same thing. Like Sully doesn't pick the tunes. I play a lot with Sully, and I pick the tunes. When I played with Cormac for years, I picked the tunes. I would say, "What about this?" and he would just do it. And I don't mean he didn't have opinions, but he liked having that kind of just handed to him. And Sully is more kind of like, if I say to Sully, "Do you know this one?" he'll mostly go, "No. 3, 4, and play it." Because on some level he does know it, but he doesn't know what it's called and he doesn't know how he knows it. I mean, he's phoned me up before and said, "I don't know where this tune came from, but it's fully formed and here it is. I don't know if I wrote it or I remember it from years ago." And he'll play it, and it'll be a tune that he played last weekend, but it'll be in a different key, so he thinks he's written a tune.
Nice.
That's amazing.
Like one time he phoned me up and he went, "How do I know this hornpipe? I'm thinking about putting it on my next album." And I said, "Well, I've got bad news for you. It was on your last album." Not a clue. So very different, but I tend to kind of take the reins with people because I'm like a bit of a control freak, and I'm like, "No, we'll have this now. We can't have that next because that's in the same key as we just played in, and I don't like that." And the tunes that Sully likes that are gimmicky, I call circus music. I'm like, "No circus music allowed, please." So very opinionated, very annoying, and still playing backup,
I love it.
I imagine when you have this, huge oral repertoire in your head. I mean, how many tunes do you think you know? I love asking people that.
Gosh, I mean, it's easily hundreds. But the amount of them that I know the name of would be a much smaller amount than I actually know. And then there's a sort of peripheral amount where I know roughly where they're going because somewhere in there I know them, but I don't really know them. Like I wouldn't play them. So there's kind of levels to it. there's tunes that you know, and you know the name, and you play them all the time. Jim Donahue's Phyllis's Birthday. These are like standards. And then you go out and there's a couple of like 4-part tunes that kind of you've heard at a million sessions, but I would never play. And I go, that's that one. I think I know that the next part goes to the major key, but I don't know it. And then there's always a tune that you don't know and someone plays and I go, what is that? And it's literally pentatonic. It's 5 notes, but they're arranged in a slightly different order than another tune that I played last week. And it's invariably Sean O'Brien plays some new pentatonic tune I've never heard.
Yeah.
And he goes, I got it off some album. It's 400 years old. And I'm like, it's amazing. I love it. It's the best tune I've ever heard. And suddenly I'm obsessed with it. It's the new thing.
When you were hanging out with your dad when you were a little kid with your plastic accordion, are there any other kids that you were running around with back then that are now that you've kind of come up with?
Owen Joe Macaulay. Yeah,
oh, really?
Owen Joe Macaulay and I are the exact same age. I think we're probably a couple of months apart. We ran about together causing mischief. And the Hannon kids from Newcastle, we were pretty close. Ken and Kathleen Hannon. So every time I play a fish in Newcastle, I see Kathleen and her sons. One of her sons, Paul, was about the same age as me. And if there was ever like an Irish dancing event, a wedding or a world ball or whatever, we were always there. And, there are still people around that kind of, I don't know. Yeah. Owen Joe's the main one, I think. Like I see him and we talk and it's like, I'm like, how are the kids? And then you go, we used to run about just daft together. Yeah. We were the kids. And suddenly like, he's running a fish, I'm playing the fish. It's funny, but we're still going. We're still going because we can't get away. We just love it,
Right.
Maybe we'll start to bring back the toy accordion at the Fesh. I've already started that with my daughter.
Oh,
for when I was pregnant, my mom gifted her a little red toy button accordion, and I actually have a great picture of her with Cormac and Sean at Kickin' It Irish from a couple of years ago with her little toy accordion sitting between the two of them with their accordions, and she still whips it out and she plays it, and she wanted to play it with K-pop Demon Hunters, which that was a combination the other day, let me tell you. But I really hope maybe
it needs it.
Yeah, it's hard. I know the feshes are a long day, and kids, I think, are not maybe as used to sitting and being bored as they used to. But you hear the stories of these lifelong friendships that come up, and I really hope people kind of take the screens away at least for a little bit. Let the kids make friends with other kids their own ages, and whether they're dancing or not, and maybe bring a little bit of that chaos back to the fesh.
Absolutely, just mucking about, like
yeah.
I'm trying to bring back going round to my friend's house for no reason. It's difficult because I moved to London and no one goes to each other's house because everyone's 2 hours away. But when I was living in Glasgow, I'd be like, I'll just go. And it's not like we're going to get together and watch the new episode of whatever, or we're not like going out for dinner. I'm just going to go around and just sit on your couch, Because we used to do that. As kids, we used to do it. And as young, when we were students and all, we didn't have to have an activity because everything now is like sign up and get a login and go and pay your money and go to this event and this special facility where you can hit golf balls into the abyss or whatever. But like we used to just muck about, and we were kids as well. As you say, like being bored and then going, well, we'll have to figure something out. Let's go and annoy the janitor. The janitors are listening and will be saying, don't bring that back.
We were talking at the beginning about you are currently part of a production of Cabaret. We want to talk about your work as an actor and a comedian. I first learned this phrase from you, but it's bigger than it's bigger than you. I thought you invented it. But this portfolio careers theory or idea, people who do lots of different things aren't eclectic and have 9 jobs. Like I always say, I have 9 jobs, but no, I have a portfolio career. It's actually kind of a special deal.
I'm going to start using that. That's great.
Yep. Yeah. So that was a long way around to say, let's talk about your portfolio career.
Right.
And how it all fits together.
There have to be links, but the links are often emotional or like psychological in the sense that I get the same feeling from being in a tech rehearsal as I do from being at the end of a day of a fesh. There's something about being pushed, being tired, repeating stuff that I really enjoy. So it's kind of I'm chasing the similar feeling as opposed to the exact same activity. But I think it's interesting to watch what from one thing has bled into the other. So Sully always talks about the way I write tunes being quite theatrical. So they tend to follow patterns that you hear more in musical theatre than you do on Irish, traditional albums. And then now I'm in Cabaret and I do a lot of improv, and I'm supposed to be improvising in kind of 1930s Berlin, but there's a remarkable amount of pentatonic scale and like triplets going in because I'm playing the accordion and I fall into the Irish dance patterns. So there's that. There's the kind of crossover. But largely it's about following joy. It's about like, well, if I did only one of the things that I do and called that my job, the reality is I would be unemployed 90% of the time. Or maybe a bit less, but I'd be doing a lot more of just one thing and I would probably sicken of it. But because of it being a spread of different things, I've always worked and I just go through phases. Sometimes I've done, say I've done like 4 feshes in a row, or I've done a bunch of Oireachtas and gone round. At the end of it, I'm kind of like, can't wait to get back to the theatre. Or I'm in a play for 3 months and I say, I'd love to play a fesh right now. Someone asked me the other day, we have a calendar in the dressing room for all the holidays that we've requested, because I'm in Cabaret for a year, so we get allotted holiday time, stuff like that. And the 2 holidays I've requested are for going to play feshes. So they're like, where are you going? I'm like, the Scientology Centre in Dublin to play a fesh. And then back to Glasgow to play a fesh. And they're like, do you not think maybe you should take a break? And I'm like, yeah, but this will be a break for the mind. I can't wait. So yeah, it's about what interests kind of cross over, what is common to all of them, and it's following joy, it's storytelling, relating to an audience, and creative freedom in the context of a really strong structure. That happens in all of these things. My podcast is the same every week in the sense that it comes out at the same time. I interview the people from the same industry, and the conversations follow a similar pattern, but the questions are different, and the conversation can go anywhere I want it to go, or anywhere it happens to go. Feshes are really strict and specific about what happens at them, and yet within that, we play the same tune twice and it comes out completely differently and I feel differently about it. I do the same show 8 times a week in the West End, but it's different every time because I get to improvise and try different things. But at 7:05, I'm always at this exact spot playing this exact piece, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So structure and freedom within the structure, I think, is probably the most common denominator of all of it.
Is there storytelling? That you mentioned the storytelling element of it being important to you. Is there storytelling in your playing?
100%, 100%, particularly with set dances.
Oh, sure.
I think set dances are a story. The music of a set dance is a story, and it comes back to my dad a little bit, because one of the things I have criticized him about is, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Bedknobs and Broomsticks. This is a bit of a leap.
Oh yeah.
You know when Professor Emilius Brown appears in the street with his box of tricks, and he sort of opens up this little dirty old suitcase and all these little panels come out of it and all his tricks are on display, and he's like, ladies and gentlemen, and it's all kind of hanging out there. I call my dad Emilius Brown because what he sometimes does is he plays the first 8 bars of the tune and everything gets flung at the wall. Like, here's all the stuff I've got for you. And I say, no, we have to use restraint and tell the story. We drip feed it. And the same is true of a set dance. You don't go blasting in at 11. You start gently. You maybe don't move chords for ages. And then you start to expand. And in the set piece, expand even more and use more of the keyboard, and you use, more complex voicings. And at the end, you've gone somewhere. You've started somewhere and you've ended somewhere else. And there's a completion to that. There's a gestalt. There's like a gestural journey that's taking place. I think that's super important. And again, most people probably don't even notice it, but it matters to me.
They know that there's a reason they like the music.
I think that's definitely
even if they
true.
don't understand exactly what's going on.
Yeah. That's definitely
I remember I was sitting, it was between competitions. It was in Greensboro for Worlds. And I remember you were up and you were just kind of noodling around on the piano and you started playing Planksty something. I don't remember. Maybe it was Planksty Davis.
It would be
And you were
Davis.
playing, yeah, and you were making it into this like beautiful slow air. And then I think someone came up and started talking to you. So you stopped and there was a woman behind me who went, "Oh no, keep going." She was so hooked into it and everybody wasn't everyone. So like I think, whether you're playing it during the competition or, between sets or something, there really is something that people hear and they hook into and they absolutely love. So I think that storytelling aspect, again, even if they don't understand exactly what's going on, I think people really do
Yeah.
hook into that and they really feel that.
But Planksty Davis is a story.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's so, in a way, it's so simple and so repetitive. So in order
Mm.
to make something of that, you do want to make it into a story as well. I mean, there is a story in there, if you know what I mean, but you have to play it 4 times round for one dancer. Once for the intro,
Yeah.
right, left, and set. And it's the same. The set goes up an octave, but it's the same tune. And yet I could play it all day. I mean, when they have occasionally you get a bunch in a row and I'm just like, I'm in heaven. I just love it. And the slower the better. And I don't mean 76. Don't even start me. But 101, I remember there was a teacher in England that had a 101 beats a minute, Planksty Davis, for a while.
Wow.
And I just couldn't wait for one of her kids to come on stage. So I was like, this is just joy. Just groove right into it. It's the best.
That's very cool. There was a show that you were a part of for the music last fall in Glasgow, and it was called Fesh. And I
Yeah.
was hoping you could maybe talk a little bit about this, and this seems like a good segue to go into it, and how maybe the storytelling influenced how you composed and performed the music for that. So I was wondering if you could talk maybe what was Fesh, what was it about, what was your role in that?
Great. Yeah, it was a really funny play, a very clever play about 3 generations of women who were involved in Irish dancing. So you've got the grandma who's run the school for years, the mother who was a champion dancer, and the daughter who they're sort of trying to mold into a champion dancer. And it's they all live together, and it's kind of the politics of these 3 women, these 3 generations relating to each other. The daughter wants to spread her wings and do other things. The mother has has a sadness that she can't do it anymore. And the grandmother, of course, is trying to hold on to power whilst missing her poor husband who passed, but wants to hang on to the school. And it's the most important thing in the world. And, whilst it was about Irish dancing, it was also just about families and people who care about something. And it was also about power and politics and corruption and all these things that, happen in all different walks of life. So it was relatable to anyone who came to see it. But we did draw a crowd of people who not so much were involved now in Irish dancing, but people who had that affinity. I used to do Irish dancing when I was younger. And they came and they saw these archetypes come to life and they recognized them. For the music, they asked me would I write some music for it? And I kind of bargained to say the only way I'm going to do it is if I can play it live and be involved in the production. So they agreed to that, which was great. So it meant that I was in the rehearsal the whole time, and it meant I had a little bit of, I had a voice in the room, so I was able to kind of say that it wouldn't happen like that. So I was kind of Fesh consultant as well. But in terms of the music, it was important to me for it to be really evocative. So there's an element of, in theatre, we have music that's diegetic and non-diegetic. Now, I can never remember which is which, but one is music that's actually happening in the real life of the scene. Say, for example, someone's singing a song in a pub in the show, or someone turns on the radio. The other type of music is music that's happening in the minds of the audience, but the characters aren't experiencing it. And in a show like Fesh, you have both, because some of the scenes are set in a dance class, some are set at the World Championships, so there is music. And in other cases, there's music that scores the piece that the characters aren't hearing, but the audience is.
Right.
So those are 2 different journeys that you have to go on musically. You have to go, what would we hear at this Fesh and how would it sound? So you want it to, first of all, I mean, in a really simple way, you want it to have tons of reverb, for example, because you want to feel like you're in this big cavernous hall and the music's miles away from you. And then the other music you want is got to be really evocative. And then there's the question of, well, what are those tunes going to be? So like when we were at the Fesh, one of the reels I used was Phyllis's Birthday, because I wanted to have something that was just like recognizable, Fesh reel. and it just does what it says on the tin. Phyllis's Birthday is a really, I want to say straightforward, but in terms of its impact, it's pretty straightforward. It's been on loads of Fesh albums. People get it. We hear it all the time. Then for other bits, I wanted to use tunes that were really old. So I used like Cooley's Reel, which is as old as the hills, and it lends itself well to being slowed down, because it's pretty languid and kind of, it can be really flowy if you slow it down. And then what I did was take the names of the characters in the play and dig around old tune books to find tunes that were named after those people. So the middle woman who was the mother of the middle generation, her name was Deirdre. So I used a little slip jig called Deirdre's Fancy, which is really old tune, and it goes bam ba da ba da 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 in E minor, right? Just a simple little slip jig, and I used that a lot. The mother was called Maura, so I found this Maura Connolly's reel, which was just this cool reel I'd never heard. And then there was the daughter was Aoife, so I picked a tune for her. So there was an element of that which was, again, it's a bit like playing at a fesh where a lot of what you do probably isn't directly noticed, but if you took it away, it would be noticed. And often the job of music and other things like lights and sound in theatre is to be invisible. It's to work so well that people aren't thinking about them. The joy was to tell a new story, but to evoke the fesh world for those people who knew what that was. I mean, one of the actors in the show had been a dancer as a younger person, so knew a lot of the same people as me. And when I started playing old fesh tunes, she was, oh God, that takes me back. I'm in the hole again, So we wanted to try and bring some of that so that people who did come and see it from that world would feel that evocation, but also to tell a new story just using this very old form of music, and to try and, I suppose discourage people from thinking that it was Riverdance, but also to teach something about that world, to dispel a few myths, because I think people outside of the world sometimes look at it and think, well, that's just madness and it doesn't make any sense.
Sure.
And yes, it's confusing and ostentatious and unusual, but at the same time, it's steeped in tradition, and it's a wonderful world to be involved in, and it can be so great for people who take part in it. So I suppose we had an opportunity to educate people a little bit as well, and say this is a cool thing, and it's not that different to maybe what you're involved in. It's probably not that different to gymnastics competitions or salsa dancing or whatever it happens to be that your kid does. Probably the same good things and bad things arise, and we try to lean on that universality as well.
Well, and I, as you were describing the scenario of the story, the first thing that popped into my mind were family farms, and how it, at least in the United States, how those have changed. Like it was the grandparents who started it and grew it, and the next generation is trying to maintain it, and the younger generation doesn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah,
it's a pretty universal story.
So like
exactly, yeah,
pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like a great project.
It was a lot of fun.
I'm sure a lot of the listeners are going to be hearing that and saying, "Oh, I wish I could have gone and seen that." It sounds like it was really cool.
Yeah, it totally sold out, and people just went mad for it. Because also it was Irish and funny, and relatable. So it was a warm story to be part of as well. And it was outrageous in its own way, but also super relatable. So people just had a great time. It was a good day out of the theatre,
That's very cool. That's very, very cool. Well, we were wondering, we've talked a little bit about this, at the beginning of the podcast. You were saying how, in the fesh world, in playing fesh music, it's the people that really make the experience for you. And I'm sure, I feel the exact same way. I'm sure Christo, feels the same way. It's so much about the relationships and these, it's kind of the family you choose to spend all this time, right, and effort with. What do you think your relationship with Irish dance music looks like 5 or 10 years from now?
I mean, I think the main thing is I hope that I'm still playing it.
Assuming it continues to deliver joy.
Yeah, exactly. If it's still joyful, then I hope that I'm still doing it would be the main thing.
Yeah.
And I suppose another hope is that it doesn't change too much. Because I see a lot of changes in it, and some are good and some not so good. And I think the invention of what we call the Feis machine, which I'm sure you and I have talked about extensively, Julia, with your studies and your writing and stuff. The Feis machine would be a specifically programmed keyboard that delivers beats and backing, and you can play melody on top, and it kind of is an all-in-one Feis sound, which was, I don't know, want to say invented, but sort of discovered and pioneered by probably the Bradley brothers and Gary Curry, I think most, and Anthony Davis. Anyway, that's been a good and a bad thing for Feis music, because if played well, it can be a wonderful tool, and if played badly, it can be a disaster. And it's also, with like many things in the world, people look at it and they think, oh, that's an easy way of becoming a Feis musician. And the news I've got for you is there is no easy way of becoming a Feis musician. It's the same as when people ask, what's an easy instrument to start learning? And I always say the same thing. No instrument's easy. Every instrument is a life's work. So what makes you think you'd be able to fast track your way? And yet, because there's not that many Feis musicians in the world, and there's a lot of Feishes, some of them are being played at by people who don't really fully know what they're doing and haven't had any kind of haven't served an apprenticeship, haven't sat at the side and learned, Coolies and Deirdre's Fancy and played for hours and hours and listened and taken it in. And so I suppose I would be wary of that in the future, that we're not just taken over by the droids of the Feis machines. And that's notwithstanding people who can actually play them. I don't have any problem with that.
Everything I've heard about the Feis machines, it's really difficult to play,
because you've got to have play well, like anything.
Like it's and you've got to have like kind of three brains split on all these different parts that are going.
So it's a myth that it's easy, and that's why we have a problem. Whereas at least people look at the accordion and think, "Oh, I'll never be able to play that." So we have that going for us. So most people don't try, which is good, because it's a life's work. But so is a Feis machine, if we're honest. So I hope that the changes are incremental and helpful, that I'm still doing it and that it still brings joy, and that we still honour what needs to be honoured, like the tradition, and there's always a way to freshly approach stuff like that. I mean, the fact that there are tunes that we're still playing that my dad started out playing when he was 14, when he played his first Feis, and that we're still getting joy out of them, and dancers still want to hear them, means that they have something in them, and the DNA of these tunes is some magic that means that they're still playable and there's still life in them. So I would hope that if I were to transport 10 years into the future and see a Feis, that people are still playing. I'm trying to think of other examples I've not used. The Fox Hunters or whatever old tunes.
The Butterfly.
The Butterfly, absolutely. Or like, what's that amazing hornpipe in E minor? I can't remember the name of it. But it's just one of those tunes where no matter when you play it, it's just like, how can this be hundreds of years old? It's amazing, and it feels new, and you can always do something different with it. So I would hope to walk into a Feis hall in 10 years' time and someone still be playing that tune, but for me to be surprised by how they're playing it, or by their choice of chords or something, to hear it new again. That would be my hope. And that they get rid of really slow set dances. That would be my other wish.
I think you're going to have to keep hoping for that one there, Ryan.
I mean, I play for some organisations where they don't have a minimum speed. So, you play Plaistow Davis at 68 and stuff, and it's just...
That's tough.
So, always hoping for that to change.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Well, this was fabulous.
Thank you enough,
thank you so much for taking the time to do this. You've got, so many different hats that you wear, and you have so many different things going on. So we really appreciate the time that you took to do this with us.
It's a joy. It's a joy to talk about stuff
that's great.
That you're passionate about, isn't it? That's I could talk all day, so it's great to have the opportunity. I love what you guys are doing.
Oh, thanks, Brian. I always really appreciate your perspective. You and I have had lots of conversations at these events. And looking at, it's easy to sort of look at the rock star dancers and go, wow, that was really good. But you and I have had some great conversations about folks that look like they're, got there on their own or struggling, to get through it and have interesting stories to tell as well. And it's fun to surround, to be with someone like you and surrounded by all of these stories. We're looking forward to bringing more of them into this podcast. So thanks.
I think I just have to say one more thing, and what you hit on there is about people, and that I suppose if you look forward to 10 years' time, if I'm not still surrounded by good people in Irish dancing, then that's definitely a time that I would quit.
For sure.
Because I think there's lots of terrible things that happen, and without wanting to be libelous, I'll just say that, like I said at the beginning, it should be about children having good experience, being safe, and having enjoyment, and about good people sharing great tradition, and anything else can absolutely get in the bin. But people like you guys are why we keep doing it, because we meet up at Feshes and we have good experiences, we have warmth between us, and we would look out for each other. That's what's really important, and it's important in all walks of life. So long may that continue.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I agree.
It's funny sometimes coming to majors and seeing you guys at the majors. I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm coming home. This is kind of my second family, right?
It'll be okay. You see the people in the hall, you go, it'll be okay.
We're okay, right? We're in a different air-conditioned ballroom than we were last year, right? We're in Glasgow,
or
we're in Greensboro, but it's an air-conditioned ballroom. We got the same people. We got the same good vibes. It's something that is so important.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Planxty Podcast. Our technical producer is Christo Sween. Our managing producer is Julia Topper. Theme music composed and performed by Sean O'Brien. New episodes drop on the 17th of every month.